On March 17th, I set 2 personal records. It was the closest I've ever been to death, and it was the happiest day of my life. Last week, we spent 9 days in Douthat State Park in Virginia for some time to reflect the trip and to bond and to get closer with each other. For one of these days, we had what was called a solo day, where from 10 to 4, we weren't allowed back inside the cabin, we had no electronics, and we had to be alone. But besides that, we could do whatever we wanted. So I chose to go on a hike. At around 2:30, I came to a fork in the road that wasn't on the map. One way stayed on the trail and led to where I was supposed to go. The other led into the vast national forest that surrounds the park. Sadly, I unknowingly wandered into the national forest. Around 2 hours later, I came to a gravel road and realized I had no idea where I was. First, I wandered right. I ended up on a trail that took me back to where I started on the road. Then I went left and ended up going nowhere. I realized the only way to get back would be to backtrack 2 hours uphill and then 3 hours downhill. It was already 6:30. I was supposed to be back by 4. That day, I hiked through 34-degree weather, rain, snow, sleet, darkness. A lot of times I wanted to stop, but I knew I couldn't, because if I've learned one thing on TBB, it's to push through the pain. I struggle socially. I suffer from OCD, ADHD, social anxieties, and depression. I never really had many friends at home. All of my ideas of socializing came from TV and movies, very antiquated ideas that didn't fit in with the real world. Before TBB, I was nervous. I was going to be spending the next 7 months with the same 14 people. I was worried I wouldn't like them, or worse, they wouldn't like me. Sadly, these fears came to fruition. In TBB, to describe our learning, we use 3 terms: the comfort zone, the learning zone, and the panic zone, and they're applied to all types of learning. My problem was, whenever I was confronted with a large social situation, I'd go to the panic zone and resort to my fallback, comedy. I'd make dumb jokes that would come off as sexist, racist, and just stupid, and people started to associate me with these things. People didn't like me, and they had good reason not to. Luckily, I was able to befriend Nadir Jang. Nadir saw through the fakeness in me and was able to see the real me that was trying to get out. We became very good friends, and he really helped me get to the place I am right now. At the beginning of Thailand, our second unit, we had a very good talk about realness, fakeness, facades, masks, filters, and started to think about myself. I tend to repress a lot of my emotions, and I put on a lot of personalities to cover up my real one. I started to look at my comedy as a way to hide myself, my repression as a way to not let people get close to me. I decided that I wanted to find out who the real Jon was, beneath everything. Through meditation and reflection, I was able to explore nooks and crannies of my mind I had never seen before. I found a lot of pent-up anger and sadness that was coming out in very unhealthy ways. I think the best way to describe the real Jon is through my comedy, something very central to me. I'm crass, crude, dirty, intelligent, satirical, dark, and above all else, funny at times. This was a hard realization to make, and the next step was even harder. Do I stay the same, or do I change? On the one hand, I could stay in that same rut. While it was really bad, there was certainty in it. I knew what it was like. On the other hand was change. I was going to be changing myself, one of the hardest things I think I'd ever done. I was nervous. A thought kept going through my head. If I have to change myself to become friends with them, are they really friends with the real me? I decided to look at this problem differently, because I don't think there is a real Jon and a fake Jon. I think there's more than that. I think there's an ADHD Jon who can't control himself, but just wants to make people laugh. I think there's an intelligent Jon who wants to be recognized. I think there's an antisocial Jon who just wants to be left alone. And I think that and a lot of other things all come together to make me, me. A big part of myself is my comedy. In Thailand, I did a media project on comedy and what it meant to me and my fellow students. Through this, I was able to really define what comedy meant to me philosophically and socially. I think a lot of times I use comedy when I get scared. I know how to do it, and it's a lot easier than making conversation. I was worried that if I was going to start limiting my jokes, I'd be limiting myself. My jokes are a part of me. Comedy is a part of my life. All of our lives, we're taught the same lesson. If you want to make friends, have love, be happy, be yourself and act naturally. But what if those are wrong? What if change is necessary? I think the best way to explain my process is again with my jokes. Just because I changed my jokes doesn't mean I changed my comedy. Although I made different ones, I didn't make any less. I was still me. Every joke became a test. Whenever I would say a joke, I would see how it landed. I would see how it hit. It was through this that I realized that the panic zone and the learning zone are not mutually exclusive. The difference between them is choice. Normally when I went to the panic zone, I would hide in my mind. I would go to a corner and sit there and wait it out. But I realized this wasn't helping me. From then on, whenever I went to the panic zone, I was determined to make it the learning zone. Every time I got into a big group social situation and something went wrong, I took notes. I saw what went wrong and what went right. I studied. And eventually I was able to come out a better person. A lot of comedy is about perseverance. When you tell a joke, there's usually a second in between when you tell the joke and when the crowd reacts. For someone with social anxieties, that second is the scariest thing on earth. That second is filled with fear, regret, and sadness. But when they laugh, it's all worth it. It's an unimaginable euphoria. But a lot of times, the crowd doesn't laugh. Every comedian bombs more often than they land. And a lot of comedy is persevering through those hardships. I think this is what really helped me repair my relationships with the group. Before this trip, I was an asshole. There's no other way to say it. A big part was, and part of that, and because of that, I had wrecked a lot of personal relationships. An example of that is Emily Carter. Me and Emily weren't very good friends at the beginning of the trip. I had very low self-esteem and a lot of insecurities, and to deal with those, I targeted others, and she was one of them. It's one of my biggest regrets of this trip. A lot of times, I wanted to give up on her friendship. I wanted to say that you can't be friends with everyone. And a lot of times I considered it. But I knew it was better to fail than to not try at all. Every day, I tried to become better friends with her. I found out what jokes made her laugh, and I found out how to become closer with her. And now I'm glad to say she's one of my better friends on the trip. The problem with me being social was I had very low self-confidence because I didn't have any friends beforehand, so I didn't know what being social looked like. I didn't know what I was striving for, if I had achieved it, if I could have achieved it, or what it even looked like. I didn't really know I had made friends until one day when I wandered into the woods and didn't come back for 11 hours, 6.5 hours late. On that day, I started hallucinating due to exhaustion. The ground beneath me shifted. Every step sent shocks of pain through my legs. The cold soaked through me to freeze my bones. I wanted to stop, just for a second. But I knew if I did, I wouldn't be able to keep moving. A mantra went through my head. Rest is the death of motivation. I later learned that if I had stopped moving, I probably would have died of frostbite. That hike was very scary. It was cold. I didn't know if I would survive. I didn't know if I would lose any limbs. But the scariest part by far was the loneliness. But every 10 minutes or so, I would stop and I would scream, "Please help me. I'm alone. I'm lost. I don't know where I am." And then I would call out the names of the individuals on TBB. I never got a response. Well, I would later learn that this is because the park rangers don't search the trails until the last step. But I didn't know this. I was worried that people didn't know I was gone or just didn't care. Luckily, all these years are put to rest in one moment. When I finally got back, after being warmed up at the ranger station, I went to the cabin. I saw all of my friends inside, worried and scared. I walked in. I saw the tears on their face. I saw the pure relief to see that I was okay. And I saw the genuine joy. In this moment, I realized that these people were my friends. They laughed at my jokes not out of pity, but out of humor. They helped me because they truly wanted me to get better. I'm still scared and I still have a lot of questions. I'm worried that I'll have to do this process again in college. I'm worried that it's just a one-time thing. I'm worried that I'm not able to fully change. ADHD is a struggle I deal with every day, and it rarely gets better. I wonder how this has changed me, how it will change me, and what's next. But through this, one thing is certain. I am Jonathan Reisman. I am me for better and worse, and I am loved.
I have to control my emotion. If there's any questions right now for Jon, just a moment.
So I can only say thank you for this very, very deep inside view of the perspective through TBB, and it was a great moment, and thank you very much for these 20 minutes. Thank you.
So would you recommend to other students who have that second-guessing feeling inside that they should also do a gap year before they go to college, or do you think going to college and then doing a gap year afterwards would have been different?
Well, I think for me, a big part of the reason I went on a gap year was to overcome a lot of these social struggles. I've always kind of felt like I was behind my friends and peers, and I'm glad I did this. I felt like, I don't like the term gap year because it implies it's some sort of break in between high school and college. But I don't see it as that. I see it as a completely separate step of my education. I went to elementary school, middle school, high school, TBB, and then college.
Mm-hmm.